guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing some YA recommendations slash just YA books that feature a queer romance that I absolutely adore. I don't have that many because I honestly don't read a lot of YA. I used to before I got kind of more into queer books, but then YA queer books are definitely becoming more and more popular, but weren't quite as many when I was in my YA phase. So I kind of just have ones that I know I love. There are definitely a few YA books that I really want to get to, such as like the Sunbearer Trials and a few other books that are queer that I do really want to get around to reading this year. But for now, I just figured I'd show you my favourites. So let's get into it. And these are all physical copies as well, which is a rarity for me, but I have them all because I love them all. So yeah, let's get into it. First up, we have probably my favourite duology ever, and of course the cicadas are going. Again, I apologise for them. They're loud, they're noisy, and I can't do anything about it, but I do have a microphone today, so I'm hoping that this helps with the sound. Let me know down below. Sorry, sidetrack. My favourite duology slash also my favourite books ever is, I think I have spoken about them on my channel, but definitely not in depth or anything, and that is The Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. These were the two books that really got me back into reading. And if any of you guys watch Carrie Cakes or Carrie Can Read, she also had a similar experience. I was in a bit of a not really reading much phase, and then I read these two books and I just fell in love, and they got me so hooked back into reading, and was also one of the first books that had featured a queer kind of couple in it at all that I had read, and I just fell in love. And so if you guys have not read The Six of Crows duology, you need to. It is fantasy with kind of real life elements, but then also that more magical based system as well. And if you guys don't know, the series by Leigh Bardugo as well, the Shadow and Bone series, yeah, I think the Shadow and Bone series, I have read all of them as well, but this is by far my favourite series slash books that Leigh has done. I just can't tell you how many times I've reread them slash I just love them, and just everything about them to me is just perfection, and they're just such solid books that I would recommend to anyone, regardless of if you read queer books, fantasy books, not queer books, like just amazing books. So in the first book we are following our main characters. We have Inej, Kaz, we have Wylan, we have Jasper, we have Nina, Matthias. They're kind of our main set of characters, and this is told from all of their perspectives. So it changes between chapters from each perspective, and essentially Kaz, mainly Kaz Brecker, if you guys haven't heard the name, they've all had their own kind of rough histories and pasts that have led them to where they are, but they basically kind of run like these little, I don't want to say robberies or anything, but they're definitely a scheming bunch of people. Kaz is definitely the leader of that scheming, and there are kind of past things that play into it, but basically Kaz is on a mission to retrieve certain things. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it if you guys do want to read it, but basically Kaz kind of works with Inej and Jasper mainly, and then Nina, Matthias and Wylan come in through their own stories, and this group of people end up working together to try and get into the Ice Court, which is where Matthias is from. And they're along the journey, along the way, other plot points kind of prevail, and we see other characters also come into play. And then there is again that magical element that we see more in the Shadow and Bone series. That's kind of the focus of that series, but definitely is still an integral part of this series. But this series is a bit more like heisty. They're getting together to really break into this ice palace essentially, and obviously with that comes a lot of planning, a lot of scheming, a lot of moving parts. and it's just such a fantastic time. Like, the characters are all so unique, they all have such different things, and I've just never really met characters like them before, and just haven't found that in other books either. And then the story and actual plot and all the different elements that go into breaking into this very top secret kind of place was also just so much fun, and such a ride to see how Kaz in particular kind of schemes, to see each character's own backstory and how that plays into their role in the group. And that group dynamic is just so interesting, but such a beautiful found family kind of group as well. And then we also have kind of the relationships, which I don't want to spoil if you guys haven't read, but my favourite relationship is Jesper and Wylan. I can't tell you how much I love the banter and the connection that these two have, and how there's just such a easy build up, but then also just trying to understand each other and their different backgrounds, especially Wylan, because he comes from a person who is very high up and is who they're targeting, and kind of how he became so disconnected from his family, and his story is so beautiful. Then you have Jesper as well. They all have such great stories, but they're just my favourite kind of romantic couple in these books, even though each couple definitely isn't heavily romance based. Like, you don't get a lot of romance, but it's the build up between all these couples that make them so special and so beautiful to read about, especially between the two books. And the fact that I don't think we're ever getting a third book is so sad, because I could read about these characters forever. Like, Leigh has just done truly such a magic job at giving such solid characters that grow and develop, but also get along, but then also have their own little banters between each other, and just really seeing them all throughout the books and their different perspectives is just magical, and it's just such an amazing ride to be a part of. And then you also have the more, I guess, social norms and ideas that we have in our world, you also see translated into more of a fantasy world as well, which is something that I think when authors can do that and do it well, really adds a layer of depth of connection and understanding for the audience as well, because you can connect to some of those themes and those topics discussed. Even though it's in a fantasy-based book series, they're still very prevalent throughout. And also just the themes of, you know, family, found family, friendships, and developing those, and then also seeing kind of the harder times that you can go through in all aspects of that. Just amazing. I can't rave enough about this book series still, and I read this maybe, I want to say like 4 years ago now. Like, I've had these books, read these books long before the Netflix series. Years ago were some of my first books that really just got me back into reading, and for that I'm so grateful. But then I still reread it and absolutely adore it. So even years later, it's still one of my favorite duologies to read, and if I could read books again for the first time, those two would be top of my list of what I could wish I could just have that feeling of when I first read this series, and how much it drew me in, and how much I adore these characters, and then seeing them all come together truly just like made my heart happy, made me happy, and I couldn't recommend them enough. If you guys have read them, let me know your thoughts on the Netflix series. As much as I enjoyed it, I do really wish that we got the Six of Crows duology separate to the Shadow and Bone storyline, just because I feel like they kind of deserve their own story, their own show, because personally I prefer this over the Shadow and Bone duology. Oh, it's a trilogy, not duology, sorry. But I don't know, you guys let me know if you guys have read it down below. What are your thoughts? I'm still very much looking forward to watching the second season and seeing more of the Crows and their storyline, and then obviously meeting Wylan, who is just my favourite character. I love him so much, and I think they did such a great job at picking Jack for it as well. He's just so sweet and just kind of fits that image of Wylan. So yeah, That is The Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, my favourite YA duology, one of my favourite books ever. Like, when someone asks me what's your favourite book, that is what I go to, The Six of Crows duology, and I will probably continue to go to it as well. Next we have a standalone book, and this is Cemetry Boys by Aiden Thomas. This book again was one of the first reads that I read that was queer and that I absolutely loved, and it was just such a beautiful book, and this one especially has multiple layers of queerness in it that I adore. So we are following Yadriel and we are following Julian in this book. And so Yadriel, he is a trans boy and he comes from a Spanish family. Family basically are witches, and he's definitely kind of suffered a lot of just the hardships of being trans and making that transition, and how, especially in more conservative cultures and religions, just how hard that lack of acknowledgement is, how hard the lack of support can be. And him and I think it's his cousin, they end up actually summoning the ghost, which is the ghost of Julian. And from there the plot just kind of continues. Again, I don't want to say too much and spoil any of these books in case you do want to read, but he accidentally does summon a ghost, which is Julian, and Julian kind of has his own backstory, and from there they just kind of sort of develop a very beautiful friendship and a bit more than that. And it was just such a nice, gorgeous read with very solid characters. I loved the trans rap. I love the way that Aiden, yeah, well, almost called him Adrian. Aiden talked about being trans and just the struggles that you really do face. And then Julian also with his own kind of ways and past that led to him dying. And then also just the representation of Latino people and being Spanish, and again, just the very sad reality of racism and what people that are in communities that aren't white basically face was also done very well. And it was just a really great book, and again by Aiden Thomas. I really want to read The Sunbearer Trials. That's a YA fantasy book that I would love to read, and it's definitely on my list of books to read this year as well. And that also features trans rap and just a lot of queer representation, which I think is fantastic and I love to see in books as well. So that's Cemetry Boys. Also the cover is just so beautiful. The actual inside, like the drawings and everything for it, are just also gorgeous. Like, I don't think you guys can see that, but really, really gorgeous story, but also gorgeous art and gorgeous details within this book as well. And how could I possibly make this video without mentioning my favourite graphic novels, which you guys should know is the Hearstopper graphic novels. Let me get them all. Oh! Wow, this is 4 out of the 5. The 5th one is releasing this month, which is, I'm so excited but also so nervous. But these are the Heartstopper graphic novels. If you have not seen, you should see, and they are just perfection. So in this story, well, in these graphic novels, we're following a few characters, but our main characters are Nick and Charlie, and then we have their friends Tao, Elle, Darcy. We have a lot of different characters within these graphic novels, but Nick and Charlie are our main couple that we are following. Tara and Darcy as well, and then again Elle and Tao, and then we have Isaac. So that's kind of the main group of people we're following, and it's just simply, not simply, but these graphic novels are just books about what it is like to be queer, what it is about being a part of a community and finding yourself and finding friends and finding people that accept and love you. And I probably can't talk about this series without crying, but they're coming, the tears are coming. These graphic novels just touch on so many important topics, not even just sexuality and friendship and family, but also on mental health. That's a big one in these books, and they touch on just so many different very important topics. Masculinity, like they all play in to sexuality, but you know, just all those different aspects of society that can be very hard to deal with, especially when you're a part of the community. And this book touches on it, but it's also done in a way that, whilst is really real, isn't to the point of like very upsetting. Like, I think a lot of the times we can have representation for the queer community, but it just be so depressing and so upsetting. And well, yes, we struggle, and yes, there's a lot of tragedy that the community's been through. I think it's also important to have stories, especially for young people, that are uplifting and that are optimistic. And I think Joe Locke said it best, who plays out Charlie. He said in their recent GQ interview that they just did that Hearstopper is looking through an optimistic lens at what it is like to be in the community, and I think that is very true, because whilst there are definitely sad moments in these books that had me crying, and just kind of the discussions, but also the happiness also made me cry because it's just so good to see. I think that's right, like more optimism and happiness comes out of these books than sadness, but Alice has done a great job at combining that mix of talking on how hard it can be to be a part of a community that people don't want existing, and how hard it can be in friendships and at school, especially when you've come out, and in families, and how hard that is in coming out, and also on mental health. Like, she's done a great job at addressing them, but then still maintaining that sense of happiness and optimism that these books represent. And she's truly done such a fantastic job. Like, these characters are so well developed, and they continue to grow and develop throughout the books, and it's just one of the most magical things to read about. And they're also just so beautiful and just so loving, but in a way that is almost pure and innocent, because yeah, they mentions of sex and stuff in these books because they are teenage boys, but it's also just like the cuddles and the hugging and kind of the innocence that is finding a boy you like for the first time and exploring that with him and your friends, and that simplicity and that kind of more innocent view as well. But then as they get older, also going through what it's like to maybe want to have sex, but there's not much knowledge on what it can be like to have queer sex as well. And I think Alice has just done such a fantastic job with these books in terms of all the content. We have so many different representations in this book. We have asexual representation, we have being a lesbian, being gay, being bi, especially I think she did really well with the bisexual representation, and the fact that bi erasure and just what bi people go through can be very challenging. And for Nick, seeing that journey, especially when he's like searching up the Am I Gay quiz, I was like, oh, we all been there, because my god, that was so relatable. And just like him then obviously looking at all of the sadness that can come with being a part of a community, but figuring that out for himself and doing it so kind of respectfully, like the kind amazing human he is. And then also we have trans representation, which is again so beautiful to see and so fantastic to have in young adult novels, that, you know, younger kids can read these books and really get such a variety of what it is to be in the community, not just one thing. And I think that is the magical thing about this kind of graphic novel series, because it is on Netflix as well, is that young people are getting to read and see these things and have representation for themselves and their community and see it in a positive light as well. That can also be educational, but make you feel very heard and seen in a way that you probably haven't before. And I think that's what's so beautiful about these graphic novels. And then also just the fact that we have such beautiful chemistry between the friendships, and then also between Nick and Charlie. Like, they are just the cutest couple and humans ever. I love them so much. I love all of them. I love Darcy and Tara. I love Tao now. Like Isaac. Like I love every single character that we have gotten to meet in these stories. And then also just the fact that they are graphic novels. Like they're so easy to read. And I kind of have struggled with, like, I'm not very good at graphic based novels because I kind of build pictures in my head when I read, if that makes sense. So I wasn't quite sure how I'd go with these, but I love them. I devoured all 4 of these books in a span of a day or 2 days. Like, very easy to read, very funny. These books do have swearing, a little bit of swearing, whereas the TV show doesn't, but it's so British that it's so funny. So you have the humour, you have the love and the genuine friendships, and then you have the family, and then you also have the very real impacts and things that people go through as well. And I just can't like express the love and absolute adoration I have for this graphic novel series. I can't wait for, if I do have kids, to give these graphic novels to them as well, because I think it's something that all young people should get a chance to read and to be a part of, and just know that they're loved and they're seen and they're heard and that they have representation. I think it's so important, and I think it's beautiful that Alice has done that and then also made it into a TV show. I've made a video on the TV show. I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing. I think Kit and Joe have so much respect and love and gratitude for these characters. And as they kind of have, like, not that it matters whether they have the same sexualities as their characters, but because they do, they kind of have that realness and that genuine understanding of what it's like to have been in this position before. And I think that their love and just absolute want to really understand and know that these characters mean so much to people has really shown through in their acting, and I couldn't have picked better Nick and Charlie's. They're fantastic. I love them so much. I love the whole cast so much. I just literally have nothing bad to say about these graphic novels or about the show. But those are some of the YA books that I absolutely adore, absolutely love, couldn't recommend enough. I know it wasn't many, but they're just the ones that I truly know, love, appreciate, and that I would recommend to anyone regardless of what you like reading. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your favourite YA queer kind of based book is. I'd love to check it out. I'd love to read it. Like I said, I definitely have some that are on my list of wanting to be read. I just haven't read them yet. So I might make a part 2 to this, maybe later in the year once I've read some more YA based novels. But for now, they're what I've loved, what I've read. And as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much. I'll see you guys next time. Please feel free to comment down below what you guys love in the YA category. I would definitely love to read some more kind of sapphic YA books as well. Some more queer based YA and just anything within that community really. But yeah, as always, have a fantastic day, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. My feet are dead. But I'll see you guys soon. Love you. Mwah. Bye. That was odd. I don't normally say that. Enjoy.